Hi, Crime Junkies. It's Britt, and it's just me for right now, but not for long. Ashley's out today, but she has left us in good hands. As you guys know, we've been shaking things up a little bit lately, and today is one of those days. But how we got here is something brand new to us. So let me fill you in. A few months ago, our team was working on a case involving a girl who, along with her siblings, survived a home invasion in 1993 in which a man broke in and killed both of their parents. That girl was Fallon Farinacci, and she is now a dedicated advocate for missing and murdered Indigenous people. And so, in honor of May being National Missing and Murdered Indigenous Persons Awareness Month, we thought this was an important story to share. But it's her story. So who better to tell it than herself? Today, I've invited Fallon to the Crime Junkie Clubhouse so we can hear directly from her. Now, before we jump in, I will tell you right up here at the top that we will not be naming Fallon's parents' killer throughout the episode. His name is Andre Ducharme, but as I'm sure you can understand, Fallon prefers not to use his name. She only refers to him as her mom stalker or the stalker, and out of respect, I'll be doing the same. But that's enough of me. This is the story of Fallon Farinacci. Fallon, welcome to the Crime Junkie Clubhouse. We are so thankful you are here. You came all the way from Canada to be with us here in Indiana, and that's just incredible.
I am so grateful to be here and to be able to come here to tell my story and share it with all of you.
Yeah, so let's start with a little bit about you. Take us to your background, your childhood. Tell us about your culture.
Yeah. So the little rural community I grew up in was St. Eustache, just outside of Winnipeg, and still have ties to it. I go home. I call it my home still quite often, although I don't live there anymore. I am Indigenous. So I'm Red River Métis, and so was my father, my father's side of the family. And he grew up really proud to be Indigenous, and so he instilled that in me at a young age. There wasn't really any kind of difference from my everyday life to culture, traditions, or community. It was just
it was life.
Yeah. I always explain to people it happened around the kitchen table, in
It's
those
beautiful.
stories.
It sounds like a really beautiful way to grow up. Really, really tight family, really.
Yeah.
But we're here today for a specific reason, and I think now is like a really good time to kind of turn into that. Can you take me to everything that kind of happened?
Yeah, absolutely. So in November of 1992, this man who we knew, he was a community member, he started crossing boundaries, and boundaries in the sense of like just making you feel uncomfortable. And he called our family home. He had found out that my mother had went to a coworker's birthday party, and he had asked my mom where his birthday cake was. And my mom never made him a cake. So that is really what kind of made her feel uncomfortable to get off the phone right away. And so she said to him, I threw it in the garbage. I have to go. I have the kids' bingo, and hung up. We had a community bingo. As I said, it was like a really tight-knit community. So he called back and he threatened my mom, and he said that she wouldn't live to see her next birthday and that he wouldn't live to see his. This really kind of crossed the last boundary. So she took it really seriously. They called the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and they brought him before a judge that evening. And they failed, though, to tell the judge that my mother and father had told the RCMP that she was concerned that he had a .22 caliber rifle. So there was no seizure of weapons. There was no search of his home, anything like that. And he was released. And then in December, my mom continued to hear from community members that he was continuing to want to take my mother and my father's lives. And so from there, my mom wrote the RCMP a letter. And in that letter, she stated that, again, she was concerned about this .22 caliber, but also a handgun. The letter was never filed. And so it wasn't brought before a judge or anything like that. The stalker had 13 prior convictions. And the RCMP station fought bail for this man in 1990, saying he should not be released, that he was a danger to the community. And now we're in January of 1993, and my family's case landed on the desk of a a family crown attorney.
Which it's not like family crown would be like family court here in the States.
Yes.
So like custody and stuff like that. That's not the situation at all.
Not at all. No, this was criminal. He had threatened their lives. Along this case, we heard a lot of like errors, human error. And so this was one of those human errors. But for some reason, this crown picked it up and then felt it was appropriate to have a mediation.
Which, again, like in family court would make sense. Like you have mediations as like a means to an end. But that's, again, not the case here.
No, I mean, I wouldn't want to sit with someone
absolutely
that threatened my life. So it just baffles my mind that he thought that was what should be done.
Oh, yeah, especially like it comes across your desk, you open it to continue on with it versus like, passing it off to like who it actually belongs to, where it can actually be handled properly with the court system that should be handling it. Feels like more than human error.
Yeah, absolutely. And from there was a temp in this law clerk position, which again, human error, fine. But she accidentally mailed my mother the stalker's information, and he got my mother's.
Oh.
Yeah. So there was laws that were in place but weren't enacted at the time to protect women. And like my grandma says, my mom's mom, what good is a restraining order? At the end of the day, it's a piece of paper.
Right. And I know here in the States, it's one of those things where you can't even act on it until it's violated.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So like it's there until what?
Yeah.
Right? And like it doesn't do any good.
And so because of this, my mom had decided she was absolutely not going through this with mediation.
Yeah.
I mean, she was already scared, but this was just catapulting it. And so they didn't show up for the mediation. There was supposed to be a mediation on January 26th. So he was released back out into the public again. And he came to our family home on January 27th, and he knocked on the door. My older brother was awake. It was just after midnight. Myself, my younger sibling, my parents, we were all sleeping. And when my brother answered the door, he was standing on the other side of the door with the same .22 caliber rifle that they had warned the police about.
Two branches of the same tree, two pieces of a soul. Where one sister goes, the other will be, for she is but half of the whole.
He instructed my brother to go downstairs into our family home. He tied up my brother, and I would say he like verbally tortured him. He, talked about killing my parents and how he couldn't live without my mother. And my brother had to endure that for a number of hours before he finally told my brother that he was going to go upstairs. And he used the words, do the deed, to go kill my parents. My older brother had to write a suicide note, I guess, in a way, for this man, just instructing him to tell his family, his friends, that he was sorry for what he was doing. And then around 2:30 in the morning, he went upstairs in our family home. And that's when my brother heard my dad yell some things in French, because it was a French Métis community. Okay. And then he did shoot and kill my father instantly. And I'm assuming that that's the sound that woke myself and my younger brother up. And so when I woke up, I immediately tried to go into my parents' bedroom because I didn't know what was going on. Yeah. And I was 9 at the time, and so I'm trying to push the door open, but there's clearly someone on the other side of the door. And so I give up at that point. But I don't know what it was. Something told me that it was an emergency to go call 911.
And your brothers, how old were you and your brothers when all this happened?
So my older brother, Carson, was 17. And then my younger brother, Clinton, at the time was 5.
Okay. And you were 9?
And I was 9, yes. And so I went to call for help, but I accidentally dialed the wrong number. And so then I could see a dark shadow running towards me. So I dropped the phone and I run into the basement and hide. And eventually my mom, the stalker, and my younger brother all come downstairs. And that's when my younger brother finds me. It was terrifying because at the same time he's screaming and yelling because he can't find my brother. But he had escaped at 2:30 when the gunshot went off. He thankfully was able to get out of the basement window, and he ran to my parents' best friend's home, and they called 911. And they stated, he is entered our home and he has a gun. They heard a gunshot go off, and that us kids were being held in the house, or that not that we're being held hostage, but we're in the house.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the way the chain of command goes, that 911 dispatcher would let the officers know who were on duty at the nearby police station. So that's about 45 minutes from my community, but that police station closes at 2 a.m.
And this is happening after 2:30.
Yes. So they would call the constable on duty and let him know, and then he would then give, further instructions. So they did. They called him, and he said, go out to the Paul residence and see if you can get him to come out and talk to him.
As if he's a rational person right now.
Yeah. Absolutely. As if none of the other information had been said at all.
Or was important.
Yes. He was also the only trained hostage negotiator for this RCMP station.
So, like, the person who should have been going out and talking to this clearly irrational person.
Yes.
Holding hostages.
Okay. He
Okay.
could have called for SWAT, anything, backup. But he didn't. And instead of, just hanging up the phone and maybe getting up himself, because he'd know he'd have to come here eventually.
Keeping an eye on the situation he's responsible for.
Yeah, he accidentally fell back to sleep.
I can't imagine having that position and doing that, like having such disregard for the situation.
Yeah. So he's in the basement with us kids and my mom. And at this time, he's losing his mind. So he's upset. He looks at my mom and he tells my mom she's going to have to pick whether it's myself or my younger brother that dies next if we can't find my older brother.
Who isn't in the house at all anymore.
Not at all. And my mom doesn't know. And so we looked in all of the places. I mean, it was a tiny little basement and it was all open. And so eventually my mom wanted to separate him from us because he threatens our life again. My mom was able to whisper to me, and she gave me a hug. We were sitting on the stairs and she hugged me and said, I'm going to go upstairs with him. You stay down here and call for help. So they went upstairs and we stayed downstairs. And I went to pick up the phone, and it wasn't even up on the telephone, like this little stand that she had. It was on the floor. It had been ripped out of the wall, the cord. And I don't know. I mean, obviously I can't have regrets now, but that is one thing that sticks out in my mind is I wish I had just plugged it back in. Because it wasn't like ripped, broken. It was just, I thought I would get electrocuted if I plugged it in.
You were a kid.
I know. And I do try to give myself that grace when I think back. So we stayed in the basement and eventually we fall asleep. So my mom's upstairs for 2 hours with this man. He had my mom also write a note. And in the note, she stated that she wanted us to go to her sister who lived in Ontario. And then there was a section that he asked her to write also a part of, his own, his own grievances. And so at 5:30, there's 2 officers outside of our home.
Just like, hey, come out.
Yeah. So they do make contact with my mom. It must have been right after she went upstairs.
Okay.
They call the house and my mom answers, and she answers one-sided questions. Are you okay? Are you hurt? A lot of the answers she gives, though, are maybe I don't know, because she's
trying to protect herself.
Yeah. But he doesn't stop her from being on the phone. That's like the whole part I never really understood. I think he had been drinking and he was doing drugs before coming to our house. From what witnesses had seen him before earlier in the day. He went and he drank a bottle of sherry Yeah, it's just one of those things that I guess repulse maybe is the word for me, like with my mom's name being Sherry. And so at the end of the call, she says, can you call me back in the morning? I have to go. And so then at that point, they let her know help is on the way. But there was no real help coming at all. At 5:30, the two officers are instructed to go get my brother, and then they bring him to this command post that they're finally setting up in a community next to ours, not even in our community.
And this is a small community. Like, I grew up in a small town. Like, there's usually not a lot around small communities. Like, you're kind of just a little dot on the map.
Yeah.
So this isn't close by.
No.
Not as close as it could be, at least.
No, exactly. It could have been just at our town hall.
Yeah.
But instead, it's like 8 to 10 minutes down the road. And I mean, at this point, we're 3 hours into it.
Yeah.
And so my brother has to go there, and he watches them, the no sense of urgency, use a ruler to try to draw out a map of our house. Meanwhile, there's still no SWAT at our home. And I'm sleeping. My younger brother and I fall asleep. At 5:30, I must hear a noise. I'm going to guess it was a gunshot that woke me up because my mom was shot in the arm. I don't know that it's her arm because when I finally get upstairs, I try to go into now my bedroom and I can hear my mom on the other side of the door. And she said, "Why do you have to shoot me? You already shot me in the arm." And I'm thinking she thought, I'm just genuinely realizing this right now. I'm thinking she thought it was maybe a police officer on the other side of the door.
And so she's saying all this to like inform who's ever on the other side.
Yeah, because why would she say that otherwise? And so I get scared by hearing that, and I run into my parents' room. And the whole time, my little brother stays with me. And I get up on the bed and I go to call for help. I call the emergency number again, and I ask them for 3 ambulance because I don't know where my brother is.
Right, you still haven't found him.
No, yeah. And then I call another time, a 911 dispatcher hangs up on me. We don't know why, but they hang up on me. And I realize, I look over and I see my dad. And when I tell you, it was like, oh my gosh, he's going to help us. Like, why isn't he helping us? So I tried to wake him up, but I didn't know at the time he was dead already at that time. My younger brother came around the side of the bed and he saw my dad. I didn't, but I could tell by his reaction that something was wrong. So I just left my dad. It's almost like I just moved away from him. And I didn't touch him again after that. I just left him alone. And it's at just after 6 o'clock, between 6 and 6:30, that my mom tries to leave my bedroom, and she's shot one more time. She's shot in the shoulder, but because of the type of weapon it is, the bullet spirals, and so it severed her spinal cord. And she died right in front of myself and my younger brother. The stalker stayed in my bedroom, and then I heard a noise, and it was the sound of the gun. He turned it on himself, and he committed suicide on my childhood bedroom floor. And we don't know that, so we stay in my parents' room. And eventually, my mom's alarm goes off at 7 because she would have been getting us ready for school.
Yeah.
And I take the phone off the hook at that point because it's like an alarm and phone all in one.
Okay.
And I'm worried that he's going to come into the room. Eventually, my younger brother and I move onto the floor. And we're on the opposite side of the bed. So we're trying to hide there so that if he does get up, he can't see us.
Yeah.
And so we continue to wait and wait. That was quite a long time. And where we're sitting and waiting. And I never share it because it feels so dehumanizing. So I had to go to the bathroom, and I had broken my arm. Winter wonderland of Manitoba. And I had to have a bag over my arm. And so the option was to cross my mom's body and risk him seeing us, because I thought he was alive still, or I had to use the garbage bag and like lay it out and then go to the bathroom. And so I always thought, like, when they came in after, I was mortified of these police officers coming in. And it just, like, it seemed so, I don't know. It just seemed like we're already in this position, and now I had to do this.
When did someone finally come in?
Not until 8:30 in the morning.
8:30. And the stalker got to your house after midnight. Mm-hmm. Your brother escaped after 2:30. And no law enforcement came into the house until after 8:30 that morning.
8:30. And when they came in, they just yelled out, "This one's gone, this one's gone." Well, first they, the usual RCMP, whatever they might say, like weapons
like,
down.
We're here, yeah.
And then I can just hear them, one officer yell out, "This one's gone, this one's gone." And then this one's gone. Mm. And then next thing you know, there was 2 paramedics who were community members. They were my friend's fathers. Oh. They came in, they threw 2 blankets over us and picked us up and carried us out. And when they were carrying us out to the ambulance, I could hear a man speak, and I thought it was my brother. I remember shifting a little my weight, like, oh my gosh, Carson's here. He's okay. Because at this point, I have no idea where he is.
Yeah. You haven't seen him since you went to bed the night before.
Yeah. And so we were put in the ambulance, and then they had asked the ambulance to be sent to the Misericordia Hospital so that we could go see my mom's coworkers and everyone there, and that they could take over and look at us there, just to make sure that we weren't hurt and nothing was done to us. And it was there that they kind of corralled us into a room and told us at that point that my parents had, in fact, died.
Wow.
The only thing I wanted was to see my best friend. And I begged. I kept saying, "I just want to see Sheena. I just want to see Sheena," who's my sister, who I call my sister now. And so finally she comes, and my memory is so clear. I remember just running up to her, and it was probably the length of the couch distance, but I just remember us running to each other and holding on to each other, because that's all I wanted was her all day. And I just held on to her. I don't know, it was I've got someone I loved back with me.
Like an anchor.
Yeah.
And what stands out to me in all of this is, this was not, you talked earlier about human error. This wasn't one human error 2 months before this happened. This wasn't one human error the night that it happened. This was error upon misstep upon misstep the entire way through.
Yeah. We have those 2 officers taking my mother's statement, failing to tell the judge about the rifle that she's concerned about. How about we go back to even 1990, where they let him out and they say that he's
no threat to society.
Yeah. And then from there, we have the letter that was never filed, the law clerk who accidentally...
The case being sent to family court, not criminal court.
Exactly. And it proceeding to go to the mediation.
Staying in family court.
Yeah, absolutely. And then not even the inquiry process, where I didn't tell you how the judge blamed the townspeople, saying that they should have done more to protect our family.
Which, I'm sorry, I thought that's what law enforcement was for. These are the very people put in place.
Yeah. Right?
By the government to protect you.
To protect you. Quite literally their job.
That's kind of their whole thing.
Yeah. And then we have officers who, didn't actually enter our home SWAT never came in,
No
didn't
sense
get
of
out to our
urgency.
community.
Yeah.
The officer who fell asleep, like, they're all taking the stand. One officer says that my mom, by telling him she threw the cake in the garbage, that
Started it.
that was a reaction. Yeah, she gave him.
She was the instigator.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Not the man stalking her.
No.
Not his problem.
Absolutely
Her response
not.
to that was the problem.
Yeah.
What was next for you and your siblings? Like, what was the future like for you guys?
Yeah. So a few days after, honestly, I don't even know how long after they passed, we had the funeral in our community. And I just think of how full the church was. It was filled with, the firemen, the community members, people from my mom's work. And I just remember sitting there and I was still, I was in shock. Like, it's out of body kind of experience of like looking around and thinking like, oh, everyone's here. But it still didn't really grasp the idea of like what I had like completely lost and like this new normal. There's a news clipping and I remember the memory so clearly, not of the photo of me, but like the other side of it as the 9-year-old looking at my parents' casket and just like kept reading, like mom, daughter, those like name tags that they put on caskets. And it's like son, father. And I just like remember like looking over and over and thinking like, oh my gosh. When we first moved there, we had to live with my aunt. It was hard because we had to move within a month's time. And I mean, this was a community that I had known my whole life.
And small, insular.
Small. Yeah. I didn't want to leave. But Carson turned 18 within a month of moving out there. So within 2 months of my parents passing away, he had turned 18. So he like, quote, aged out, right?
He becomes an adult.
Yeah. Which is just sad, I think, for him. Like, I have a 19-year-old. I couldn't imagine him just being like, okay, you're on your own now because no one's getting money for you to take care of you. So,
especially what he went through.
Yeah. She had brought us to one play-based therapy. And by doing so, they suggested, yes, they could use therapy.
Yeah, you think?
Yeah, but this is the 90s.
Right.
And she never brought us again. And so we never had any formal, like, professional help after that.
And your older brother wouldn't have had
nothing.
Any because he was, quote unquote, too old.
Yeah.
By the time he even got there.
And that would have been him to advocate for himself.
Right.
And I mean, what?
As a kid.
Yeah. I don't know any 18-year-old that would be advocating for themselves for mental health support.
No.
So because of the lack of mental health support, along the way, my older brother took his own life. That's ultimately what I would say it was really at the end of the day. So he took his own life, and he himself didn't make it to 38 either. And losing him was harder than going through what I went through with my parents. Just because he was my everything. I looked up to him so much. So it was really hard losing him. And my younger brother, I noticed in 2023, his mental health was on a decline. You know when someone's not doing well. And I think that's what hits me so hard with this is that in November of 2023, my younger brother took his life as well. And, when they talk about denial, I didn't feel that with my parents, and I didn't feel that with I felt it with my older brother where it's like, oh, I thought I saw him. I saw a car driving by and I thought he was in it. this I immediately said, no, let's go. We have to go check him.
Yeah.
And that was really, really difficult because I had been through it already.
Right.
And you think, oh, you've been through this already. Okay, in 2 weeks, that's what I would tell myself. 2 weeks, you'll be not better, but
you'll be further along in this process.
Yeah. And with my brother's death, one thing that had prepared me, my older brother's death for my younger brother's death, was that I had this epiphany moment with my older brother. I was driving down the street. Someone was walking down the street, and I thought, oh, life goes on. Life goes on. And so when my younger brother died, I think I was quick to want to jump through this grieving process.
To make life go on.
Yeah. And it doesn't obviously work that way. And following my brother's death, everyone, I feel was on high alert for me, wondering how I was doing mentally. And it took time. I think I was just in that, the depths of grief for so long. And it's funny, actually, I just said to someone recently, I think it was my older brother's birthday. He was born March 17th. So it was the March 17th following my younger brother's death that I finally felt a little like myself again. I could finally look at myself in the mirror, and I remember just being oh, hi, there you are. Because it does, mental health and losing someone to suicide is so hard. But then it was that realization after my younger brother died, that he never made it to 38 either. And then now I'm here, and why, so constantly having to go through that and wonder.
Why, as in, why am I still here? Why me? Or
a little bit of that. What's the purpose? Do I need to do something? Is there, is there something bigger? And I think that's why I have that fear also of when is the saying, the shoe gonna drop for me? So.
So what do you do for your own mental health? We've talked a little bit about mental health and how important it is, having lived through this trauma. What do you do for you?
Yeah, well, for the longest time, I didn't want to talk about it, right? I think we all had this notion growing up, oh, if there's something wrong with me or some way I feel, everyone's going to think I'm, quote, crazy, right? I'm lucky. I have the most amazing husband and my kids. So, they help me. And then obviously, yes, therapy is great as well. And then it was in 2017, one of my cousins, she was working for the Ontario Federation for Friendship Centers. She said, your parents' names were named in some research done. There's grassroots organizations that had been fighting for years, years and years, asking for answers as to why is there such a high number of missing and murdered Indigenous people across the country. She was like, would you consider testifying? And she had nothing to do with the inquiry process, but if that's one more story that can hold the government accountable,
for sure,
then yes, of course.
Yeah, definitely add your voice.
Yeah, so I said yes, and I testified. I shared my story. And just the way that for people that don't know, is the National Inquiry for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Girls,
and this
Spirited.
Was in Canada?
In Canada,
okay.
Yes, yeah. And it was really through that process that I met other family members, and I kind of set a light bulb off, oh my gosh, this isn't just the cards that I was dealt. These cards have been dealt to so many other Indigenous people, communities. And as I met some people that had so many similar stories to me, I was like, okay, I need to be involved in this somehow. And so then it was 2019, I get this call from the commissioner if I would join the National Family Advisory Circle. And then it was there that I met other family members, survivors, and hearing their stories, it shook me to my core. And I thought, okay, more needs to be done and more needs to be said. And these people need to be heard. Stories need to be heard. And so I continued on the National Inquiries Committee with the family members. And then we came to a closing where we handed over the final report, all the research, the findings that had been brought together from these...
The evidence.
The evidence, exactly. And it was there that I grabbed my husband's leg and I whispered to him, I said, I get it. And he said, you get what? I said, I'm the girl. And he just looked at me and I was like, and I just was overcome with emotion because I think that was kind of the first time I realized I'm the girl that... I shouldn't be here statistically.
Right, you're the statistic.
I'm the statistic, yeah. I'm the child that, the systems are up against.
I feel like that's such a sign that this is what you were meant to do.
I love that you said that. Because you don't even know this, but my spirit name that I have that was gifted to me by an elder is White Thunder Woman. And he said that I'm here to make a lot of noise. And so that's just so special that you said that because, I don't know.
You were making noise before you were even trying to, really.
Yeah.
But you are doing actually so much in advocacy. Can you talk a little bit more about that and how you got involved in it?
It was a few months later, a friend of mine, Dr. Robin Bourgeois, and she had decided to start the Decolonial Reading Circle at Brock University. She had wanted to take action, and I just admired that so much about her. And so I joined the National. I remember emailing can I join this Decolonial Reading Circle? And so we became friends and eventually had the honor of co-hosting with her and following her lead for this Decolonial Reading Circle. But I think that was kind of that moment where I thought, I can do something. There's something I can do too. And it was Robin who introduced me to this incredible organization. It's Abbey House. It's a transitional home for Indigenous women in St. Catharines. And I thought, okay, this is an organization I also want to get behind. I really realized how much the Decolonial Reading Circle really showed me, okay, you can do something yourself as well. And I thought, okay, well, I'm going to do this fundraiser. And boy, am I ever happy I did, because within 24 hours, we raised $10,000.
Oh my God.
Yeah. And that was it. Then I was like, I want to start a walk. We didn't have a walk for May 5th. And so we started a walk, and, we're hosting it again this year. And along the way through this journey, being with community, friends, finding that place that I called home in St. Catharines has been a huge part. I think even for myself, mental health at that point, I didn't even realize the importance of talking about it. And I have people ask me actually quite often, what are things that you do? I think they're hoping to find an answer for themselves to help their own mental health journey. And I just say, remember the things that make you feel good. When you're in a good headspace, what are the things you're doing at that point? I still, to this day, when I go home, I feel closer to my parents. And it's just that nice connection that I get to go back there. And then I feel closer to myself, tradition, culture.
Home is more than just a physical place. I think it's also a spiritual and emotional place too.
Absolutely.
And it sounds like that's what this community was to you.
Yeah.
So that kind of leaves me with a huge question for you. Where do you need us? Yeah. What can we do?
That's a huge question. I will say this, and I've said this quite often since I heard this elder say this. Now that you've heard my story, what will you do with it now? Have the conversations with, not without, and bring change with Indigenous people, right? Because I think a lot of times those conversations are happening not
outside of.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And come out to gatherings. I always always say, come to like the May 5th walk, for instance. Find out where there are gatherings happening, where there is action taking place, because that's where you're going to find out, and getting involved. And it's not like that one-off, that one time you're going to stand and you're going to march with us.
It's the ongoing support.
Yeah, absolutely. That is where it helps. And like, I think a lot of people think, oh, I wouldn't be welcome. No, you would be welcome, because we know that the change, for me anyway, it has to happen together. There is power in numbers, and that is where it will actually propel forward.
Right.
Is if we're doing the work together. That's why it's important. Come out to the events, do the work with, not for, but with communities. I'm one story.
Right.
Please channel this energy into all the other people, or the people who are searching for missing family members right now, have no answers, or are being met, with roadblocks from the justice system. Like, help them. My justice is this being talked about, and for other people to bring action for other people who are missing or are currently going through the court system for their murdered loved one.
So we talked a little bit about how your mom was very aware that her life was in danger, that at least her life was in danger, if not her family's. If there's a listener out there right now who is in that place in their mind, they feel threatened, they feel like their life is in danger, what can they do to make their voice heard and protect themselves?
Yeah. Well, first, if they have shared and they feel like they're not moving forward with the justice system, specifically like my mother's case, tell your friends, your family, advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And also, do not question. Like, no matter what, always follow your gut with it, because our instincts, we have them for a reason. We also, as women, are made to believe that, oh, we're making it up. We're making a big deal out of it. Oh, it's nothing. But I think a lot of people might also keep it to themselves in fear of, oh, am I making this a big deal? I don't want to burden anyone. No, any of your loved ones will not feel burdened with these fears or concerns that you're having. And this is something just to, flying here, before I came, I thought, oh, the thing that's going to, and this is a scary realization, the thing that's going to kill me is probably going to be my story. Like, that's a fear. Like, being in advocacy and sharing, is this what's going to kill me? Like, am I going to piss someone off, So it's still there, that fear. It feels like you're isolated for so long in these situations, and would anyone care? So, yeah.
We care.
I appreciate that so much.
Fallon, I cannot thank you enough for being here and being willing to tell us and the Crime Junkies your story. It's such an important one. Is there anything else you'd like to add at the tail end of this?
I think for me, I just want people to understand that, yes, my story happened in the 90s, but I hope that they can also see the ripple effect of what this has on, obviously, my brother's lives, my life, like, not to take myself out of it as well, but then how it affects these communities, and that you might see an Indigenous woman that is missing, but, like, we say it for a reason. They are someone's daughter. They are someone's maybe mother. They're an auntie or
sister,
they're
cousin.
A human. As much as you are giving ears to my story, listen to theirs as well. And remember that they are a part of a community. I will be the first to say it. I am privileged, and people will listen to me quite often. I'm white passing. And so I think for me, I want to acknowledge that, because then I also want people to shift and think, would they have maybe listened as intently if I looked different?
If you weren't you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned a GoFundMe.
Yes.
We'll make sure to link that in the show notes, as well as resources for the US and Canada. So listeners, be sure to check that out. And again, thank you so much for being here.
I just want to thank you, because without platforms like this to share our stories, we do feel alone. So I appreciate it very much.
I know. I'm like, oh, there's a microphone between us. Oh my gosh, thank you so much.
Oh my gosh.
You were amazing. You did such a good job.
Thank you.